What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast, CBS Sports Daily NFL Podcast. I'm Will Brinson. I'm your host. It is Monday, March 15th, and this is our Day 1 NFL Free Agency Recap. Joining me on the podcast and on our live stream on YouTube.com/Pick6, Ryan Wilson and John Breach. What's up, fellas?
John, thanks for joining us. You took the weekend off to be a father, which I congratulate you for, but you missed yesterday me yelling at Brinson for being late. So we're all on time today, so I did you a favor.
Oh, well, that's funny that you are congratulating me for that right now, because those texts I got from you over the weekend would suggest you were not congratulatory about me not being there.
Oh.
Hey, Breach, why don't you show up for a podcast and stop taking care of the baby? You know, I thought that was a little uncalled for, but I'm here now. That's all that matters, Wilson, to save you from Brinson.
Shout out to anybody in the chat. And I don't know if y'all heard us the first when we went live. There's a little timer in the top right corner of our thing, and it actually said like it had been running for 10 seconds when we went live. So I'm not sure if that thing about player X, former NFL player X knocking John Breach's dad to the ground showed up or not. But yes, I am on time. What's up to everybody in the chat? Thanks for joining us. If you have questions about free agency or want us to address something, we will happily do it. Obviously, the podcast is still the podcast, but we'll incorporate questions, chatter, discussion, rumors, nuance, and other things as we move along. We will have a mailbag coming up, of course, down the road on Friday. So if you want to leave us a mailbag question, leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and we will answer that mailbag question. Today will be the recap of Monday's action. We're recording it around 5 to 5:30 as we're starting. So if anything happens in the evening, that'll be circled back into Tuesday's show. Usually during free agency, there's actually this little break. It's like a dinner break that the teams take. And there's always that first day. It's like, it looks like, all right, everything's done at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. And then there's one big signing on that first evening.
And last year, you know what it was? It was Stephon Diggs getting traded to the Bills at like 9 o'clock at night. That's
right. Good call, Breach. One year it was it Revis to the Pats? Who was it? I'm trying to remember. Anyway, also in the feed, a mock draft with Ryan Wilson. We break down his mock draft 5.0, and we will have daily free agency recaps. Usually you're used to this podcast coming out in the morning, but we're going to release it when we get done with it because we want people to be able to listen to it in more of a real-time fashion. So if anything big or breaking happens at night or in the morning, we will obviously do an emergency podcast. But for right now, we are doing these recaps in the evening and then releasing them around free agency. By the way, if you like hanging out with us on the podcast or in the chat, you can hang out with us in a bracket game. That's right. We will be doing a Pick Six Podcast bracket challenge game. I'll be there. Wilson will be there. Breach will be there. And we want you to join us as well. So join us at cbssports.com/Pick6Brackets and compete for a prize. I will throw in some sort of Pick Six swag. Breach will probably throw in, I don't know, a cat, and Wilson will throw in an angry chiding of a relative of your choice. They will never look at you the same again. You can create your own group as well to compete against friends and fill out your bracket for the chance to win a Nissan Rogue and a trip to the 2022 Final Four. You can play on the CBS Sports app or at cbssports.com/Pick6Brackets. Okay. We'll get to some of the questions in a second. Keep putting them in the chat because we can see them. Keep lobbing them out there. But we got to get to the story of the day, the story of free agency to start. Breach, Bill Belichick. By God, it's Bill Belichick's music, and he came flying in with cash to spend, waving it all around. He got that stimmy check. And he is looking to spend. He signed Matt Judon 4 years, $56 million. Jonnu Smith 4 years, $50 million. Jalen Mills 4 years, $24 million. And Gotcha from the Dolphins on, I believe, a smaller 2-year deal. But all of them sort of make a lot of sense. But how surprised were you, Breach? And we'll dive into this specifically. But how surprised were you overall to see Belichick making it rain?
I mean, I was shocked. This was like my wife going to Target with her stimulus check, where I just know she's going to come back with everything, whether we need it or not. And that's how I feel about the Patriots here, because even though they absolutely needed the players they sign. Otherwise, they wouldn't have signed them. But the one thing the Patriots did here that you don't always see is they played market price. Because, remember all those years when we talked about, hey, look, Tom Brady's on this team. Teams want to sign with the Patriots. They want a chance to win the Super Bowl, so they'll take below market value. That didn't happen here. They have Jonnu Smith, $50 million. I think just over $31 million was guaranteed over 4 years. You gave Matthew Judon a market contract. So the Patriots were just out there making it rain in free agency. And I never thought we would see that because that is not what they do. But clearly it does feel like Bill Belichick, after, watching his team struggle last year, said, all right, I just saw Tom win the Super Bowl. That's not happening. I'm going to build up this defense. I'm going to make it great. And that's how we're going to win is with defense and tight ends, which is what Belichick is known for. So this is right up his alley as far as who they signed. And you know what? The Patriots are a better team right now.
Yeah. So I think the takeaway is last year with Cam Newton, who didn't look like Cam Newton. Maybe he was injured. They re-signed him. He's back. They made all these free agency moves you talked about. Jonnu Smith can play in the backfield. He can line up in the backfield and run the ball if you want him to. So now you have two running backs that weigh 250 pounds, basically. And what Bill Belichick was saying last year is, okay, take your best shot. We're going to win fewer games than we lose, but you better be ready. So, Bills, if you want to win the Super Bowl, this is the year to do it because this is going to be your last chance. So, depending on what happens with the quarterback situation, and part of me wonders if they're loading up on all these offensive positions that they need to fill. They got an edge rush help. That maybe they're going to be looking for quarterbacks in the middle of the first round, and maybe they have some plans of moving around to get one if they truly like one. And if they get a quarterback that has a chance to play right away, they're going to challenge the Bills. And I think it's going to be like, what are you laughing at, Breach? You think
I was going to say, or that Monday night deal that Brenton's going to be talking about, it's going to be Jonnu Smith, Matthew Judon, and Jalen Mills to Houston for Deshaun Watson. Belichick's, I flipped everyone. I fooled everyone.
Yeah, that would be something. But I think the takeaway is you had 1 year to kick me while I was down. Get your kicks in. And if you don't win it all, other teams in the AFC East, that's on you. So for all the draft picks and salary cap space that the Jets have, they may end up being the exact same team that they were 12 months ago if the Patriots get back on track and the Bills are the same really, really good football team that they were at the end of January.
So just to look at these individually really quickly, one, I would say, well, a couple of thoughts. One, when you look at the way that Bill Belichick has handled free agency, he does not always go out and spin big. That is a very unusual set of circumstances for that to happen. However, he has frequently in the last few years made these precision strike, early free agency, big money contract moves, whether it was to go get like Stephon Gilmore. He went out and got Stephon Gilmore right away. He didn't play around. He gave him a bunch of money, and he went and got him. I really think he looks at Jonnu Smith as the guy this year that you wanted to get him free agency. And he knew they needed to shore up the rush defense. They needed to improve the pass rush, get a little bit better on the back end as well. And they had to add another weapon for Cam Newton or whoever will be the quarterback. And preferably, I think for Belichick, that weapon could be an inline tight end who's a great run blocker or an underrated run blocker, and someone who you can move all around, and someone who is great after the catch and can have tight end screens, et cetera, et cetera. That's Jonnu Smith to a T. He's a perfect Patriots player. Like Ryan said, you can line him up in the backfield. Belichick has said he is the best tight end in terms of yards after the catch in football. He said that either last year, maybe the year before. So he's a huge Jonnu Smith fan. I still don't think it would be crazy if they went out and signed Hunter Henry too, just if they wanted to recreate like a poor man's Gronk, Aaron Hernandez type of situation.
Let me throw this in quickly. I don't know about the Hunter Henry thing. I was going to ask about that, but Jeff Howe of The Athletic now, I think is where he works. He's a beat reporter for the Patriots, tweeted out earlier today at the start of free agency. The Patriots aren't done. I'd expect a wide receiver by the end of this day too.
Exactly. So the Patriots are probably adding more.
And there's been reports they're talking to Kendrick Bourne. Speaking of wide receivers.
Well, there you go. So, yes, they can absolutely sign some more guys. Now, they lost Joe Thuney, and we'll get to that contract in a minute, Joe Thuney to the Chiefs. But I also think there's a component here with Bill Belichick where not only did he identified Jonnu Smith as sort of the guy. Now, it's interesting, all these guys are rep by Drew Rosenhaus. You sort of wonder, without accusing anyone of shenanigans or tomfoolery or hijinks or whatever, if it didn't assist his ability to sign Jonnu Smith by also signing Jalen Mills, Matthew Judon, and who else is that Rosenhaus guy?
Gotcha. I don't know. Is Gotcha guy?
Is Gotcha or Rosen? There's 4 Rosenhaus guys they signed. Look,
it's like when you're you sign the 5-star to you get him a scholarship and you give his buddies who are all 1
or you give his brother. Yeah, I mean, it's the exact
Trent
same
Brown.
thing.
Trent Brown was the other one.
Oh, they traded for Trent Brown, who is a Rosenhaus guy. That's right. Thank you, Breach. Good call. One of those guys is not. I can't remember which one it is, but they got 4 Rosenhaus guys. And Gronk is a Rosenhaus guy. There's a lengthy relationship with Belichick and Rosenhaus. And I'm not saying that's why they all went there, but I do think that probably helps, grease the skids a little bit because you're loading up Rosenhaus's pockets with all these signings. And he's like, hey, look, Jonnu, they're going to use you here. At any rate, I also believe that Bill Belichick looked at this offseason and said, we have a ton of money to spend. And this is going to be there's actually an opportunity to sort of buy low here because all these players are willing to take deals that look like big money deals, but are really like worth up to. That's the phrase you're hearing everywhere. It's worth up to more than ever this offseason because these guys are not taking 5-year contracts. They're taking 3-year contracts that are probably 1 or 2 year deals, depending on who you are and how valuable you are. So I think Belichick sees this as a chance to sort of reload the Pats and make a run this year. And to be perfectly frank, I bet them to win the Super Bowl at 38 or 48-1 when all this is going down. And I bet on them to, is that 48-1? Let me look for sure. And I bet them to win the division at 4.5-1. And I took them, I can't find it somehow, but I did take them to win the Super Bowl and to win the division. I think the odds are a little bit longer than they should be.
I don't think it's crazy. I mean, if you have a defense that can slow down Patrick Mahomes, that's all we talk about in the AFC. And that's what Belichick, he's looking at this like, all right, who's the team to beat? Yes, the Bills won the division, but they didn't win the AFC. Patrick Mahomes won the AFC and the Chiefs. And so we've got to figure out how we can slow him down. What do? You bring in one of the AFC's best pass rushers. You bring in someone who can beef up your secondary. Jalen Mills can play cornerback or safety. And Bill Belichick loves somebody who's versatile, who he can kind of just be a chess piece and put him anywhere. And so it's crazy to see how much the Patriots have done just over the past week. I mean, it's not just the moves we saw today. We saw him obviously re-sign Cam Newton. We saw him trade for Trent Brown. We saw him trade away one of their tackles over the weekend to pick up a few extra picks from the Texans. And so it does feel like, as Ryan was saying, that Belichick just, and as we've all said, that he viewed last year as a throwaway year. He's like, all right, we got $68 million going into the offseason right now. There's only 3 teams that have even $50 million in salary cap space. So you're the front runner. You got all the money. And, the Patriots are acting like it. Whereas you have teams like the Jags and the Jets who were the only other teams that had over 50 million. They're not doing anything. So the Patriots are just loving life right now.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I don't know if there's anything more to add to that other than they'll find a quarterback, either one for next year or one for beyond next year.
I'm not convinced. I mean, maybe I'm just a Cam Newton truther. And
I said either for next year or for beyond next year. You can roll with Cam next year. And if you have a young quarterback, you can set yourself up for, reset the shot clock, so to speak. Because like I said, they had one bad year. They got their ass kicked and now they're back. And everyone is understandably concerned, the 31 other teams or the 15 other teams in the conference.
So I got the Pats at 35-1 to win the Super Bowl and plus 433 to win the division. They are down at my site to let's see what they're at William Hill. They're at 33-1, and they were at 38-1, I think, or 40-1, and it just it disappeared. Like obviously the book had the same thought process that I did. It was like, whoa, like hold on a second. William Hill, the Patriots are still 40-1. And plus 425 to win the division. If you're able to splash on that, 40-1 for the Pats. You're betting on Belichick, and a Cam Newton bounce back. I just don't think 40-1 is that crazy. So I'm fine buying into that. And I realize it's sort of flies in the face of what my normal philosophy would be, which is betting on a team that's spinning big in free agency. Is somebody's mute button off? Debo, if your mute button's not off, turn it off, pal. Sounded like a
Debo pulled a Frank Drebin, went to the bathroom.
I know. You might have people on the live stream. Live stream indeed, my friend. At any rate,
Debo Devo's like he's pulling a what is it, the secretary and the Edward R. Rooney in the office at Ferris Bueller, the high school, where they're scrambling to get things sorted out.
9 times.
9.
Anyway, the Patriots had a busy day. They're probably not done. I guess, will we be making fun of another team for doing this if it wasn't the Patriots?
Doing what?
Spending big in free agency on the first day.
That's what we used to do with the football team. Every year we crown them off-season champs, and
or the Dolphins.
Every year they would, once the season started, they'd be terrible. But this is obviously different.
And it's out of character for them.
And as Breach noted, while they have spent big in free agencies in the past, they are paying full market value, which is something that doesn't always happen in New England historically, because Tom Brady, as he still does in Tampa, is willing to play for less.
Speaking of Tampa Bay, they made a bunch of moves. I guess they didn't make a bunch of. They only make one move. It feels like they made a bunch leading up to this, though. Brady restructures his contract, franchise tag on Chris Godwin, and I've been saying all along, and I've proven right, but I thought they were going to use the tag on Chris Godwin and then try to re-sign Levante David and Shaq Barrett to slightly under market deals, knowing that those two guys have blossomed in Tampa Bay, that they are comfortable in Tampa Bay, that they want to keep winning with the defense, with a team that they like, and that the defense really fits what their skill sets are, and that they know they'll be successful on the field as individual players and as a team if they stay in Tampa Bay. And sure enough, Shaq Barrett re-signed with the Buccaneers on a 4-year deal worth up to $72 million. It did feel like for a hot minute there, Breach, that it was Brady versus Belichick in the free agency market. Even obviously Jason Light's the one signing them and all of that, but it didn't have that a little bit of that feel to it.
Yeah. I mean, you used the two best words you could use when you tweet out, Brent. It was an arms race. It was like, Belichick saw Brady win the Super Bowl. Well, I'm going to beef up my team. Brady's like, well, I'm going to take a pay cut, and we're going to bring all these players back. And you know what we saw when we looked at Tampa Bay's roster in February and saw everyone who was going to be a free agent? It was just, you're thinking, there's no way they can keep everyone. But then Tom Brady did what Tom Brady always does. Wilson just mentioned it a couple minutes ago, and that's that he takes a below market contract, which frees up a ton of cap space. In this situation, he freed up $19 million. All of a sudden, you can afford for Chris Godwin to play in the franchise tag. You get Levante David under contract, who's a key part of that defense, and you can afford to pay Shaq Barrett. And Shaq Barrett had been spent the past month saying, "I want to stay in Tampa. I want to stay in Tampa." On Friday, when Brady tweeted out, "Let's the band's back together," Shaq Barrett said, "Yes, sir, it is," even though he hadn't really signed a deal yet. So, by all accounts, it just was, as long as the Buccaneers didn't lowball him, he was going to sign a new deal, and they didn't lowball him. He gets 4 years, $72 million. And all of a sudden, it's like the Buccaneers, Prince, did you also bet on them to win the Super Bowl? Because maybe you should think about that too.
I did not, Breach, but only because they're like 3.5 to 1.
Hey, so when do these teams have to be in compliance with the salary cap? Because there's still a handful of teams that are in the red.
Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern time.
Because I was thinking, as Breach was talking about the Tampa Bay doing all their arm waving to make this work, another team that's made it work, and we can talk about them in a second if we're not done with the Bucs, but the Chiefs.
Well, that was the next thing that we're going to talk about. Yeah,
because they were up against the cap wise, and they cut their 2 offensive tackles, and now they have a gobs of cap space, and they were able to use that and make Patrick Mahomes happy. He was probably right now he's probably much happier than Russ Wilson, who still doesn't have an offensive line.
Well, you mentioned it. I mean, feel free to actually say what the news was instead of just dancing around it. But yes, the Chiefs.
Well, it's your guy, so I thought you want to talk about it.
That's right. The Chiefs, with $33.8 million in salary cap space remaining, used it after they cut Mitchell Schwartz and Eric Fisher and restructured Patrick Mahomes' deal, which hadn't even kicked in yet. They used it to sign NC State legend
Garrett. Wait.
2-time Super Bowl champion and one hell of a model American, Joe Thuney, the former Patriots offensive guard, and who actually played tackle at NC State, which I think is and it shifted back and forth. I think that's a big deal for Andy Reid, knowing that if somebody goes down, you have a guy who can slide around a bit. The Patriots have used him something like that too. 5 years.
It works so well in the Super Bowl. Just leave him leave him a guard.
I think they'll probably do that. 5 years, $80 million. Jason La Canfora has reported that the Chiefs are in on Trent Williams too, which I mean, if that happens, you land Trent Williams to Joe Thuney, and you get the the tackle guard combo that all the Bengals fans convinced themselves they were going to get this offseason. And then you're the 3-time, or like nearly 3-time AFC defending champion. And all of a sudden you just upgraded the left side of your offensive line with Mahomes back there. That would be huge. I think
the Bengals are waiting for the 4th wave of free agency, Brinson. Let me just make that clear.
Wait. What is nearly 3-time AFC defending champions? What does that mean?
Well, they were that D Ford offsides away from winning the AFC.
I see.
Yeah,
I couldn't let you just slide with that one.
No, it's fine. I was fumbling through it. But Tooney's actually an Ohio guy, so I thought there was a connection there. But he signed a 5-year, $80 million deal with the Chiefs. According to reports, I think Albert Breer noted this, the Patriots were in on Tooney until the end. So they were trying to sign Tooney as well. I'm guessing that Tooney just looks at this as, I mean, I just won 2 Super Bowls with Tom Brady, and now I get to go spend the next half of my career hanging out with Patrick Mahomes and blocking for him and Andy Reid's incredibly complex and yet innovative offensive scheme. Like, this is a no-brainer for me. So
like no one's hating on Joe Thuney. Like, he's not going to the Jets and just clearly a money grab. He's going to a team that's better than the team he was just on.
He's getting a ton of money, and he's going to a team that is very clearly the Super Bowl favorite and the best team in football. Like, I know we get all ahead of ourselves with the dynasty talk in 2017 Eagles, but like, the Chiefs, if they get a couple tackles, are going to be in the mix. I mean, that's just, even without a couple tackles, they'll be in the mix. So, great signing for the Chiefs.
But if Tooney's playing guard, you just spent $32.5 million guaranteed, and you still need tackles.
Yeah. That's the other thing I was going to say. Like, on the other side of that conversation, the Patriots may have been in the talks with Tooney till the end, but you can find guards late in the draft. Like, you don't have to draft one in the first, second, or even third round, and you can find guys to put in there. So maybe that was eventually their thinking in terms of why we don't want to spend money there. We've spent money everywhere else. But to Breach's larger point for the Chiefs, they still have some things to do. But the good news is they don't have to worry about the interior offensive line. So that's a step in the right direction for sure. Again, the Seahawks and Russell Wilson would be so lucky.
Well, I mean, he was the highest paid guard in football last year at $14.78 million on the franchise tag. The next highest one was Andrew Norwell of the Jaguars, and I think they restructured his deal and he took a pay cut, maybe down to like $12 million. Tooney's now making $16 million a year. That's by far and away the highest paid guard. But if he were a tackle, if they were to play him at left tackle, he would just be right there in the second tier range behind Bakhtiari, Tunsil, Stanley, presumably Trent Williams as well, Garrett Bowles. So, I mean, I really think that this is a guard. I think this is we will make you the highest paid guard in football. And I don't think that I understand you have to have tackles. Of course you do. But I do think that, I mean, yeah, obviously you do. But I do think that the guard is a really important position in an Andy Reid offense where, just like it is in a Kyle Shanahan offense, right? You're going to have guys pulling and moving. You want guys who can block for screens, who can get to the second level, quick on their feet, physical. You need guys who, can move quickly in tight spaces. And Joe Thuney is exactly that. So I think it's a perfect scheme fit and a perfect signing. It's expensive, but the Chiefs have salary cap room. And now they short up, the thing that was their biggest concern, which is their offensive line.
They began to short. They still have some other things to sort out, as Breach noted. But yeah, step in the right direction. I'm not knocking it. I mean, you could be less concerned about the offensive line if your quarterback's Mitch Trubisky or Lamar Jackson, that he can run around all day. But, Patrick Mahomes, you're paying that guy $500 million, whatever his contract was last year. So clearly the most important thing is protecting him. And we saw that play out in the team they faced in the Super Bowl. They traded up to get Tristan Wirfs because they had to protect old man Brady. And it took a while to get there, but no fault of Tristan Wirfs. But when that offensive line came together, he was Tom Brady. Like, no surprises that they won the Super Bowl.
And, Brinson, you mentioned Trent Williams to start off here with the Chiefs. If the Kansas City could get both guys, and that's going to be an interesting thing. Are they out of the Trent Williams sweepstakes because they spent so much money on Joe Thuney? It's not like they had a ton of money going into free agency. I think over the cap had them at just $12 million to under the cap. So
yeah, but they were 33 over coming into today.
Right. And they restructured Mahomes obviously freed up a ton with that restructuring, but with the restructurings, they were 12 million under. So they had 12 million to spend, and they just
am I saying 33 over? I meant 33 under. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. So then they just gave obviously Joe Thuney a ton of that. So if they can land Trent Williams, I mean, that's an absolute, then the Chiefs just win the offseason. Let's just give them the Super Bowl trophy. I'm going to log off now and go bet on them to win the Super Bowl if they get Trent Williams. But maybe that's going to be too expensive to give that kind of money, because he's probably going to get $19 or $20 million a year.
Yeah, that's probably right. But I mean, 18, 19, something in that range. I mean, look, you can be creative with your accounting. You can plan a restructure down the road. These guys aren't necessarily taking, like, I think Thuney's deal. So the Thuney deal and the Jonnu Smith deal strike me as legitimate 5-year contracts. You know what I'm saying? Like, these are not puffed up by the agent, designed to make it look like we got good money in a pandemic offseason. These feel like legitimate. I mean, like, maybe, maybe end up, we'll see what the dead money is, but I'm saying, like, Thuney signed a massive free agent contract. It's just not like a puff piece that's being propped up. And yeah, the Chiefs have more work to do.
It's not a Taysom Hill 4-year, $140 million deal. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, with zero real years or zero real money, which is absolutely insane. Yeah, Chiefs have work to do, but you can always structure it in a way that you can get these guys under contract. I don't think it'll be hard for them to go get Trent Williams if they feel like that is what they need. Another key AFC West offensive line signing, Corey Linsley, former Packers center, goes to the Chargers on a big contract. Huge. I mean, AFC West offensive line arms race, you can joke about it, but this is a huge move. Like, the Chargers had friend of the podcast, Dan Feeney, Forrest Lamp, two former top 2 picks in the first 3 rounds of the 2017 draft who were free agents. Their Pouncey retired. Is it Mike or Marquise? Mike Pouncey. Mike Pouncey retired. They have multiple other offensive linemen who are free agents, and it was really just, and they released Trey Turner. It was just Brian Bulaga left on that offensive line, and we were saying, rightfully so, that was a concern for Justin Herbert's development. And so now they've gone out and they signed Corey Linsley, who played, by the way, with Brian Bulaga, so you get a little bit of connectivity there. And when I think about the type of quarterback that Justin Herbert is, he's not dissimilar in styles, like holding the ball, quick on his feet, to a younger Aaron Rodgers or even an older Aaron Rodgers. And so I think you have guys who are familiar with that style of quarterback play in Lindsey and Bulaga, and Lindsey's a big strike addition for the Chargers in free agency.
Yeah, the Chargers are going to be my favorites to make the playoffs this year. Like, I'm on the Chargers. I was talking them up last week on the podcast, and that hasn't changed. The big issue will be how Brandon Staley and the coaching staff adjusts. But, we talk about it all the time in this offseason, that Anthony Lynn probably cost them a couple games with some poor decisions at the end of football games. So if they can sort that out, get better on defense, they'll get Derwin James back, bolster the offensive line, which they're trying to do. They have everything else in place offensively to be really good. So I love it.
Yeah, and, we said all offseason, the Chargers did not have a great offensive line last season, and still Justin Herbert put up some huge numbers and looked amazing. And now you put a guy like Corey Linsley, one of the best centers in the NFL, in front of him, and that's a pretty solid combo. So I am on the Chargers bandwagon with Ryan. Let's not crash it. Let's not run it off a cliff, Wilson.
Okay.
Chargers need this. Their fans are desperate.
Before we move on, since we are talking offensive linemen, Jesse Clark in the YouTube chat asks, any thoughts on the lineman the Bengals can sign with Joe Thuney off the market? Thuney, an Ohio native, so there was maybe some wishful thinking from Bengals fans there that they could go out and spend big. Look, there have been several guys cut. Riley Reif, Trey Turner, Russell Okung is a free agent. Trent Williams is a free agent. There are lots of names. Richie Incognito was released. But, man, it starts to get a little thin if you're a Bengals fan and you were hoping that they would be big-time players in free agency. So I will let Jesse's question, which is a very good one, be answered by our resident Bengals fan, John Breach.
I am a little disappointed when I was saying that if you have a ton of money, this is the time to spend it. You know who got that memo? The Patriots. Bill Belichick has out there throwing money to anybody who wants it. He doesn't usually do that. And then you have the other top 5 teams in terms of salary cap space: Jacksonville, the Jets, the Colts, the Bengals. Those teams are just sitting at home with their money under their mattress, and they're not spending it. So it doesn't make any sense. I would have loved to have seen Joe Thuney in Cincinnati. Obviously, that is not happening. But that doesn't mean there aren't guys. I mean, I would have loved to see Kevin Zeitler return to Cincinnati. Obviously, that also is not happening because He's going to Baltimore. But there are guys out there. I think the Raiders dropped 2 of their guards, Gabe Jackson, Richie Incognito. And I know you start thinking, well, if the Raiders let him go, but you know what? Anybody's an upgrade from Bobby Hart. So you bring in a tackle or a guard. There are a lot of guys that are still available who would be upgrades based on what the Bengals have. And those were just 2 on the guards. You have Trent Williams at tackle. If the Bengals signed Trent Williams, I would go light off fireworks in my backyard. I would leave the podcast right now. And there's also guys that can help you. The Russell Okungs, the Mike Remmers, the Jason Peters, the guys that aren't as good as they used to be, but who are an upgrade from what the Bengals have right now.
Any thoughts?
He didn't mention Al Villanueva, which I thought was interesting.
Oh, well, you told me not to mention him. I mentioned him one time, and you gave me the mean face.
He played for the Steelers, perennial winners. He could bring that winning atmosphere to that locker room.
I would be happy with Villanueva.
He'd show up and be like, what are all these losers doing in this losing franchise?
Former Army Ranger, so he could bring some much-needed toughness.
Oh, and who wouldn't love a good anthem controversy in Cincinnati?
There is no anthem controversy in Cincinnati.
No, of course not. By the way, if you have a question about a player, about a team, about anything free agency related as you're listening to this podcast, or you can watch us every day at 4:00. We're going to do this podcast live on YouTube. So you can jump in the chat, youtube.com/pick6, and ask us questions related to free agent signings that have happened or that could happen. Anything you want. Oh, sorry, 5:00 tomorrow, 5:00 p.m. Wilson is doing the 4:00 p.m. HQ on Tuesday. So if you have questions about that, by all means, jump in the chat and let us know. But of course,
Wilson,
you can listen.
How long does it take you to get your hair ready for HQ?
Up high, down.
And you got it, Jesse Clark. Thanks for asking a great question. And if you leave a question in there now, we will get to it at some point. I'm going to try to weave in the questions related to the other stuff we're talking about with the signings. Then we'll do a big clearance house of the questions at the end of the podcast. Also in offensive line news, the Ravens signed Kevin Zeitler. Oh my gosh, another Cincinnati. Wait, was he with the Bengals? Was he with the Browns? He was
Started with the Bengals.
Yeah, Bengals drafted him. Wow, it's almost like the Bengals have really let this thing go. Kevin Zeitler,
and then the Giants, I believe.
Yep.
It's almost
went to the Browns, signed by the Browns, traded to the Giants in the Odell deal, right?
It's almost like the Bengals have no idea how to gauge whether or not they should keep an offensive lineman. They let Zeitler go. They let Andrew Whitworth go. That was all around the same time, and that was when their playoff team fell apart.
That is correct. Really, the second Andrew Whitworth left, they stunk. Anyway, Kevin Zeitler signed a 3-year deal worth $22.5 million with the Ravens. Wilson, I know you like to get angsty about the Ravens' moves in the offseason. They lost Matt Judon to the Pats, but this feels like a pretty big signing for Baltimore because Zeitler, a very nice player against as a run blocker. And as much as this team runs, you have to think they're excited about adding this piece to that offensive line.
Yep, for sure. And I think JLC, our Jason Lockenfor, who lives in Baltimore and does a local show there every day, said this will allow Bradley Bozeman to kick inside the center. They had some issues at center that they needed to sort out. So 2 birds with 1 stone with this situation. And of course, the running game will remain a focal point of this offense with Lamar Jackson, J.K. Dobbins. Mark Ingram is now with the Texans, so he'll be tasked with saving that franchise from itself. But that's not an issue for the Ravens, and certainly not Kevin Zeitler now, who goes from a Giants team that had a chance to win the division if the Eagles didn't go up in week 17. I can only say that now because I know Debo can't rush on to defend himself. And now he goes to a Ravens team that will be favorites to win the AFC and the Super Bowl, among the favorites. Do you know what their odds are in front of you?
The Ravens are actually the favorite to win the division, which is a little surprising looking at it.
Why?
In fact, the Steelers are you say, why is it surprising?
Yeah.
I guess it's not. The Steelers are actually behind the Browns.
That's not surprising either.
Okay.
How much better are the Steelers?
Baltimore is 13-1 to win the Super Bowl and plus 110 to win the division. This is at William Hill. The Browns 20-1 to win the Super Bowl and plus 180 to win the division. And the Steelers 30-1 and plus 340.
Is there another team in the division, or is that it?
That's all anybody cares about. I'm not scrolling that far down to find the other team.
I'm sorry. We've only had one question so far, and it was a Bengals question.
The Bengals are all right. The Bengals are 20-1 to win the division.
Oh, I'm betting that right now.
Don't
Get my phone out. I guess. How much I put on it?
Nobody believes that you're doing
50?
it. Nobody believes you're betting $50 on the Bengals to win the AFC North, buddy.
What? That's it. I'm doing it.
Show us on the screen if you do that.
I'll show you on tomorrow's podcast.
Yeah.
No, you ain't doing that.
What?
You got a small child. You're not sending $50 on fire.
He's got to ask his wife first, and then she's got to slap
Alright.
him, and then he's got to come back and say, I can't do it.
That's going to pay for the kids' college education. The odds are so high up, and so they win it. Boom! I'm rich. I can quit the podcast.
Unless she's going to John Breach School of Education, which costs $50 a year.
Where's she go to a school for ants? Anyway, so yeah, Kevin Zeitler, big signing with the Ravens. Also of Ravens note, they just lost pass rusher Yannick Ngakoue, who is leaving Baltimore and going to sign with the Oakland Raiders.
And previously, Matt Judon, who went to the
Oakland Raiders of Las Vegas.
Did I say the Oakland Raiders? Yes. That's 3 years in, still saying Oakland Raiders. The Las Vegas Raiders, who badly need pass rush help. So that makes a little bit of sense, I think, just in terms of being able to get a splashy free agent. But Yannick Ngakoue, not great against the run, has played well against the run at times. Really only had one good season. That was 2017 with a loaded Jaguars defense. Is that when Philip Rivers kept chirping in his ear and he didn't slap him in the face? What did he say? He's like, 99 yards, 99 yards.
I will say this is the math that you have to do. They had two good pass rushers in Matt Judon and Yannick Ngakoue, who were free agents. Which ones did the Patriots sign?
And which one did John Gruden sign?
Well, and the more math was Yannick Ngakoue good because Judon was on the other side with, Ryan, you've said that about Bud Dupree.
Was he good even with Judon on the other side?
No, and TJ Watt, where you have the offense is focusing so much on the other guy that, Ngakoue isn't seeing as the offense doesn't focus on him as much. And one thing about Ngakoue that I would worry about is that, look, if he was such a stud, teams wouldn't let him get away. And now this is going to be his fourth team since December 2019.
That's crazy.
So with Jacksonville, Minnesota, Baltimore, and now the Raiders.
Right. It's one thing to make a move in the offseason, but Minnesota said, all right, we're done with you in the middle of the season. And for the record, Bud Dupree is awesome. I want him to come back. I don't think his explosion onto the scene had anything to do with TJ Watt in the last year and a half.
Yeah, Bud Dupree really upped his game, and we'll see what happens with him. He should have a more robust market. A little surprised he hadn't actually signed with the
ACL. Maybe is around.
Yeah, I'm just saying,
wave 2 guy. Excuse me.
Maybe I don't know. I think maybe Bud Dupree will be the late night signing, the late night Monday signing.
No. I think he can still get a lot of money, but it may be they're kicking the tires on the Judons of the world and then circling back if that doesn't work out.
Well, it's also possible that Bud Dupree wants a 5-year big money deal, and teams are, because remember, he played the last 2 years on the franchise tag, right?
I think just one.
Oh no, he had his 5th year option and then the franchise tag. Right. That's right. But so either way, he was the last 2 years he's been playing thinking he's going for a contract.
Right.
And now he probably can get a contract, but it's not the mammoth one that he's expecting. So he's probably trying to, this would be my guess, is he's deciding, do I want to do a prove it thing again? Or do I want to just take this big contract that's really more of a pandemic deal?
And one thing that might be working against him is that the pass rush class is pretty loaded right now. This is usually in free agency, there's 1 or 2 top guys, and then you fall off a cliff and no one's that good. But, there's still Leonard Floyd out there, Melvin Ingram, Carl Lawson. So there are guys where if Bud Dupree wants the top price, the team might say, well, I can go 10% cheaper and get someone who's almost as good as you. So that could be working against him too.
Could be a situation where teams are bidding for him and they're trying to drive up the number. Who knows? We'll see. Sorry, Ryan, go ahead.
What is the talking point if you're a player that the franchise tag is good for you? Because as you look at it, it seems to be only good for the team.
It's not good for the player.
You get a guaranteed money at the
right,
top 5 highest salaries on average. So
it restricts your movement as a player. It is entirely beneficial to the team.
Yeah. Let me put it this way, Breach. So Dupree, the last 2 years, played on the 5th year option, which is part of the CBA, and the franchise tag, which is obviously part of the CBA. What would if he had signed a long-term deal 2 years ago? He would be making a lot more money than he is now.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you guys that it's not. It's more beneficial to the team, but it's not like the player is being, they're getting a gigantic paycheck.
It's not an unpaid internship, if you will.
Right. Exactly.
Right. I think that for elite players, the franchise tag can benefit you because you get that one big year. And then if you're like Dak, right? Dak blew out his ankle on the franchise tag. He still got paid.
Yeah. But
Bud Dupree a little different. Like if Bud Dupree doesn't tear his ACL, he's probably already signed for a monster contract.
I think you have to be a quarterback. You can't be even Julio Jones. If Julio Jones breaks his leg, remember those tweets that used to go around? Julio Jones got in a serious car accident, broke both his legs. That kind of stupidity.
And Zach Morris and it's like Paul. What's Zach Morris's real name?
Oh yeah, Paul.
Paul Gosselaar.
Yeah,
Paul Gosselaar. Yeah.
But anyway, the point is, even Julio Jones probably isn't coming back and getting paid huge amounts of money if he has a serious injury like Dak sustained.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think. Well, let's see how Bud Dupree's thing plays out. His free agency before we necessarily jump on that. We mentioned the Buccaneers signing Shaq Barrett. The Browns also signed a key defender, albeit not one from their own team. John Johnson signed a 3-year, $34 million deal with the Browns. Really nice signing by the Browns. John Johnson's been a player. 3rd-round pick for the Rams. They just, they're spending, I think it's somewhere between $80 and $100 million on Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, Matthew Stafford, and Jared Goff. And when you're doing that, and one of those guys isn't on your team, it's tough to figure out how to pay all your players. And John Johnson was basically a cap casualty for the Rams, who were unable to bring him back. And now the Browns really shore up the back end with a very nice player. I think Andrew Berry, in limited sample size, has been a really good free agent decision maker so far.
Yeah, I like this signing a lot. And if John Johnson's name was John Hammer, we'd all be going, oh my God, they got John Hammer. You just like, oh, he's some rando named John Johnson. He was good in LA. But again, you talked about the defensive players on that roster that he sort of got lost in the mix. I think this is a great sign for them. They drafted Grant Delpit last year, who was injured for the year, so he didn't play, and he's coming back. And talking with our buddy Josh Edwards, who works at CBS and helps cover the draft as well. And as a Browns fan, he like every other Browns fan, wasn't a huge Andrew Sendejo guy. He struggled at times last year. Sendejo did. So this is get him off the field. And now in the draft, where they have a ton of money in the rest of free agency, they can get an edge rusher, they can get an interior defensive lineman, they get a linebacker.
They would get Bud Dupree.
They could get Bud Dupree. I think Aditi Kinkabwala of NFL.com said or NFL Network said they're going to be in the mix for an edge rusher in the next 24 hours or so. I think that's a tweet I saw. So we'll find out there. But again, I mean, I sort of laughed at you when you said the Ravens are somehow favored in the division. I mean, the Browns, based on what happens over the next month or so, that could change that conversation.
Yeah, they're looking good. This was something they absolutely needed to do, was kind of shore up the secondary. They did that. The more fascinating thing here, and Brinson, you kind of started to hit on this, is that the Rams really had no choice but to let John Johnson walk here because they couldn't afford him. If you look at everybody's salary cap situation right now, I know we spent like the past month talking about the New Orleans Saints and how they were in salary cap hell. Well, guess what? Somehow they dug themselves out. But the Rams, they have to be in compliance with the salary cap by 4 p.m. on Wednesday. They are $37 million over the salary cap. There's no other team that's even $20 million over. So they're going to have to make a bunch of moves or restructure a bunch of contracts in the next 48 hours. I don't even see how they're going to be able to, they can't even afford to call up someone right now, because if that person says, yes, I want to sign with you, the Rams like, oh yeah, sorry, bro, we can't sign you because we don't have any money. So
this doesn't happen anymore, Breach, but they can't even accept a collect call. Like that's how broke.
So yeah, I mean, I would think the Rams would have wanted to keep him, but yeah, like Brinson said, when you're letting Jared Goff go and taking that kind of massive dead cap hit, you have to make sacrifices in certain places, and this is one of those, because I know they would have loved to have kept him if they could afford him.
And by the way, that's sort of a good commentary on the Russell Wilson trade possibilities. Like the Rams and the Eagles are taking the two biggest, I believe, dead cap hits in professional football history, with Jared Goff and Carson Wentz, for guys who are not on your team. And if the Seahawks traded Russell Wilson, it would be bigger than both combined. Like, it's just not feasible to field a team.
And with one small difference, that if they trade him after June 1st, the other two can't do that.
Sure.
Then it gets trimmed down to not quite as big as the Goff.
Yeah. I'm operating the assumption that it's really hard to trade a quarterback after June 1st because everybody's already done their stuff, and you wouldn't get your draft picks.
Let me ask this as you guys talk about that, which is a good point, because 3 or 4 years ago, however long it was, we were all saying that the best way to build a team is to get lucky in the draft, get Russell Wilson, get a Jared Goff, get a Carson Wentz on their rookie deals, and then build around them. Now, Russell Wilson, you obviously extend because he's great. The other two you extend because the devil is better than the one you don't. But that blew up in their faces, respectively, both in LA and Philadelphia. Is the lesson here? You draft a guy in the top 10 and you play him, but if he sucks or even if he's replacement level, you don't extend him. Is that the lesson? Because I
think oddly enough, the lesson is that you sort of need to do what the Cowboys did, which is stretch it out. I mean, like, it's so hard. You're walking a tightrope. Jared Goff, by the
way, you drag it out as the team because you like that option better than as a franchise tag, as opposed to giving him all that money that now is biting you in the ass.
Right, but then the Cowboys ended up giving Dak way more. It's a fine line to walk. I mean, I think
here's the thing: if the Cowboys had done that with Jared Goff as a quarterback, you would understand that. Like, why they didn't sign Dak, I don't know.
Right, that's the thing is, like, I think it's really more. I mean, like, Goff and Wentz both showed enough where you felt like Wentz in 2017 played so well that you're like, all right. I mean, like, you give him a contract.
Wentz definitely did. Goff was always like, okay.
I don't know, man. Goff was really good that the year that the Chiefs. No, what are you talking about? Goff remember the game the Chiefs
54-51, the Monday Night Football game in Mexico that got moved to LA.
And then he took him to a Super Bowl. He took him to a Super Bowl.
He did not play great in January and February.
No, he didn't. And he didn't play great since then. And so it's just weird. All I'm saying is that you take a guy like that early in the draft and they play at that level for you.
I think the issue is that one of the mitigating factors, okay, we have Sean McVay, he can fix it. We have Doug Peterson, okay, he can fix it. And Carson Wentz was better than Jared Goff at the beginning of their careers, I think. I understand that deal much more than Jared Goff's. The issue, of course, is Carson got hurt and then things went sideways. But I think
let's get back to free agency. What are we doing here?
No, but I mean, that's a question that's worth asking because these quarterbacks are going to get signed, not these guys, but other quarterbacks are going to get signed soon to long-term deals and that are current free agents, and those are questions we're talking about. Go ahead.
Okay. Other deals of note very quickly. The Lions are re-signing Romeo Okwara to a 3-year deal worth $39 million. The only compelling reason I can find why Romeo would re-sign with the Lions, besides $39 million, is that his brother is still on the Lions.
Yeah, the beginning of his career, he was undrafted out of Notre Dame. His brother went to Notre Dame, was a second or third round pick last year, I think. But Romeo didn't do much at the start of his career. He sort of was finding his way, and then he went off basically in the second half of the 2020 season, which, again, congrats to him for knowing that his contract was up and he was playing for a big deal, and he landed. He had 10 sacks last year, and like I mentioned, most of that came over the final half of the season. So, I mean, they need help everywhere, and you said that on HQ, Brinson, that, they're not a good football team, so why not sign a guy and that you fits your system, or at least the system last year with the new guys incoming and Dan Campbell and the staff. So, yeah, I have no issue with it. It's a step in the right direction. I would imagine, Breach is looking for his team to sign players. They've done nothing yet. At least the Lions have shown,
The Lions signed a young, talented, rising player whose brother is already on their team. Clearly, those two dudes like to play on the same team because they're both at Notre Dame as well. I think they like being around each other. There's nothing wrong with that, brother stuff.
Brother stuff.
If my brother and I both live in Raleigh, like we like being in close proximity to each other. It's nice, you like having your brother around. So if I'm a football player and my brother's a football player, I probably would do the same thing. And it is interesting though that the Lions let Kenny.
Does that mean JJ Watt hates his brother? Because I would like him to come to Pittsburgh.
JJ Watt he didn't want to play for a loser. He wants to play for a winner.
Boom.
But it is. I thought it was interesting that they didn't re-sign Kenny Galladay and they did bring back Julian Okwara or Romeo Okwara. Also of note, the 49ers front office owner Jed York and GM John Lynch apparently got hammered and FaceTimed Kyle Juszczyk, and they ended up working out a 5-year, $27 million deal. Jed York tweeted about it, said, must have been that completely coherent FaceTime that we had. So and John Lynch was doing some drunk tweeting about wanting juice and stuff like that. And sure enough, they signed him.
Is that true? They were drinking?
I think so. Yeah.
It's funny how that stuff works out, because I feel like if Brinson got in drunk FaceTime with his boss, it would end up with him being fired.
No.
Fingers crossed.
I don't FaceTime people. All right, so let's take a break. Whew, that was a long first segment. Let's take a break. When we come back, we will answer some questions from the chat and run over some of the other free agent deals that we need to check out. Before we dive into those deals, though, I want to tell you what our friends at Sportsline are up to during bracket week. Get every pick, every play, every upset, and fill out your bracket with the help of some of the best sports data analysis analysts in the game. Visit Sportsline now to see which teams will make and break your bracket and see who cuts down the nets, all from the model that beat nearly 90% of brackets last tournament 1 year after finishing in the top 5%. Okay, so some rumors out there. Juju Smith-Schuster apparently telling teammates he'll likely sign elsewhere. Give me a gladiator thumbs up or thumbs down, Wilson.
On how I feel about it?
Yeah. Oh no, Juju! You want to go on?
I knew he wasn't coming back. I mean, Breach has been talking about it for months. They have no cap space. They've gotten a little bit of cap space. They did sign. I saw one of the questions in the chat asked if the Steelers have done anything. They signed B.J. Finney, formerly of the Bengals, prior to that, formerly of the Steelers. The inside, the center, Marquise Pouncey, also retired, like his twin brother did. But they also signed Cam Sutton to a 2-year deal, a cornerback, which is a pretty big deal in terms of things they needed to do on the to-do list cheaply. Juju is not in the plans unless he's going to come back on some sort of nuts deal, and he's not going to do that.
Okay. Gronk. Breach teases that he might test the waters in free agency. Thumbs up or thumbs down?
Thumbs down. Thumbs down. He's going back to Tampa Bay. I think he's just having fun out there. What?
Have you ever used your thumb before? What the hell was that?
Well,
he's never seen Gladiator either.
He's like,
I was trying to trick you. So
you do that. That's how Joaquin Phoenix says it.
This is when I haven't decided yet. This is like moving your chess piece. When you take your hand off the piece, you have to stick with your move. See,
by the way,
when it's back here, down.
If this were Gladiator, you're the first person I'm feeding to the Lions.
Are you kidding me? Cats love me, Ryan. I would have them trained in 3 minutes and then they would eat you. Joke's on you.
Breach is out there trying to sweet talk a lion as he's ripping his body.
I have cats too. I have cats.
I will say real quick that Gronk was on Kyle Brandt's podcast to the 10 questions thing. And he pointed out that he had never been a free agent, which is actually pretty interesting. He's only signed 2 contracts in his entire career, which is crazy because he's been in the NFL since 2010. So he signed his rookie deal. Then he signed, the rookie deal is 4 years because he wasn't a first round pick. And then he signed a 6-year extension. Boom, there's your 10 years. And the end of his Patriots contract was his first year with the Buccaneers because it was a trade. So this is the first time he's ever hit free agency. He said he's had a few teams call him up and say, hey, man, you want to switch teams? But he also said he would like to sign with the Buccaneers. He'd like to work something out, but he is going to be taking phone calls and he wants to dip his toe in free agency. So I think he'll end up in Tampa Bay unless somebody just comes in and blows him away with some ridiculous offer, which would be ridiculous because I don't think, he's not good enough to be making $15 million a year.
And you know what? I know he's a bachelor. I don't think he's married.
His girlfriend and or fiance, I'm not sure. I think engaged. She was also on the podcast with him and Kyle Brandt.
I believe it's girlfriend. And yes,
to my point, moving's a pain in the ass. That's what I was going to get at. Like you can say you want to move and all that other stuff, and at the end of the day, he wants to do it.
Isn't it Camille Harris? Is that right?
Kamala Harris. That's her name.
Camille.
That's the vice president. I do not think she's dating Gronk, however.
She might be. You never know. Camille Kostick.
Yep.
Okay.
She's a attractive young lady.
She was on the podcast. Not our podcast, Kyle Brandt's podcast.
Kyle gets some good guests for that podcast. Did
Gronk say anything about I don't know if it's a rumor, but the report that he lives solely on his what's it called?
Oh, his endorsement
income.
Yeah.
Endorsement income.
Is that true?
He did not, but I have no reason to think it's not true. I mean,
you know what? I mean, he looks like a caveman, but he should be the guy speaking at the rookie symposium about how to save your money. Because clearly, if that's true, he's doing it right.
That's the truth.
That's how I live. Just live on my endorsement money.
So anyway, those are 2 notable rumors that are out there. The Bills brought back some of their guys. Who did the Bills bring back? They didn't do it till Monday though. They did it previously, and Houston did some interesting moves, like an Andre Roberts signing.
So the Bills,
the Bills brought back Matt Milano and Darrell Williams. That's who it was.
Right,
and John Feliciano.
And they cut John
Yes.
Brown, Quentin Jefferson, and Andre Roberts actually signed elsewhere in free agency, the kick returner. But the Texans is sort of funny because Mark Ingram, they signed. Christian Kirksey, they signed. Marcus Cannon, they got in a trade from the Patriots, a little, which isn't odd. Anytime that a Patriots executive or employee leaves, they end up doing a deal with the team they left with. They signed Shaq, they traded for Shaq Lawson. Grugier Hill, I think it's how you say his name. The guy who used to play for the Eagles and then the Dolphins. And then Malik Collins, they signed as well. So, and Andre Roberts, that's where he ended up.
Yep.
So they're making a ton of moves, but at the end of the day, you can sign 5,000 guys. If you don't have a quarterback, no one cares.
Yeah, I think they're just trying to sort of build it up, I guess, to convince, like, hey, look, Deshaun, we're trying to make moves. We're ready to compete. We'll see how well that works out. Notably, the top unsigned free agents right now, Trent Williams, Kenny Galladay, and Hunter Henry. I believe those are the top three on Pete Prisco's list. We covered the Aaron Jones signing in the...
We did.
You and I did. Breach didn't. So you know what? Let's get to some chat questions. Mike Kornblatt says, wow, Brinson is on time, LOL. Yeah.
Well deserved.
Nicholas Lees wants to know, is DJ Chark going to the Ravens, or is that an untruth? We actually had another question about that.
Well, there's a tweet out there. I didn't recognize who sent the tweet, but I saw as a, and this is the time of year where you see all sorts
of sorry. Nicholas asked that again in a better form. Not that the first one was fine, but he said, any thoughts? Oh, no. That wasn't. What did I see? Angriest says, saw rumors of Orlando Brown to Jacksonville for DJ Chark and picks. Not sure how credible, though. That's actually interesting. Amanda Guerra asked us on HQ on Monday what would happen with Orlando Brown. I mean, he wants to be a left tackle and play left tackle, and he's not going to play left tackle in Baltimore. So presumably they will trade him before the draft, which makes a lot of sense.
But not to Jacksonville.
Why not to Jacksonville?
Why not to Jacksonville? Literally, Tony Khan, the son of Jacksonville owner Shad Khan, has been spending his entire day on Twitter shooting down this rumor. And he's going so far out of his way that I'm starting to think, it's like maybe he's throwing the curveball, look here, and then, look at my right hand, I'll punch you with my left hand. That doesn't feel like that's what's going on here. So somebody tweeted, this trade might go down. Khan said, here's something concrete. That's the biggest load of crap I've ever read. That's 100% false. Then one of the people who reported it also said that Tony Khan is bluffing. My source maintains that negotiations are underway and still happening. Tony Khan said, thank you for tagging me so I can respond to this. You're making this up. It's completely false. I have no idea who you are. And then that guy doubled down and tagged Old Takes Exposed and said Tony Khan's going to be wrong about this. And Tony Khan said, please, Old Takes expose me when something fictional happens. There is a 0% chance this happens. So I'm going to side with Tony Khan on this one and say there's a 0% chance we see a DJ Chark for Orlando Brown trade.
Or is Tony playing the long con?
The long con? Or you want to dunk for that? I don't know. Tony Khan, I love Tony Khan. I don't think we've had him on the podcast, but he's my boy. If he's out there tweeting it, it's not happening.
Had you, who tweeted the original report, Preach? Do we know, does that name look familiar to you?
It does not.
Wait. Baltimore Beatdown, which is the SB Nation Ravens blog, tweeted multiple non-reputable sources. What?
That's why I didn't name the non-reputable source. But Tony Khan is directly responding.
I was like, did they do that? Was that like an accident? Was that a misprint? No, they're saying we have multiple non-reputable sources saying that this trade is happening. And then this guy named CJ Golson tweets.
That is the source.
Yeah, so he's like, breaking Tony Khan is bluffing. And then tag Tony Khan. But then the best part is he then followed up with another tweet that said, hashtag Golson gang. Thank you for your support. I appreciate every one of you. Now get ready to fire up Old Takes Exposed on Tony Khan. I will not allow my credibility to be put into question. Tony, like I said, my DMs are open if you don't want further trades leaked. Wow, I missed all this on Twitter. That is amazing.
Brinson, you never miss anything on Twitter. What are you doing, man?
I try to stay off a little bit more than frequently. No, this year, I don't know.
Woo! We got the Patriots making another move right now.
Oh, what was it?
Nelson Aguilar headed to New England, according to our friend Ian Rappaport. I don't know if he's our friend. According to NFL Media's Ian Rappaport.
I didn't see that. I didn't see that coming.
Didn't see that. As my son likes to say, didn't see that coming. The Patriots are just going all in on the. I wonder if it's like the Patriots are like, we're gonna everyone else is zagging because they don't have any money and can't spend, so we're gonna zig and spend all of our money on day one of NFL.
So Juju Smith-Schuster, Kenny Galladay, Will Fuller, Nelson Aguilar. Why do you think they took Nelson Aguilar?
I mean, I'm guessing it's a much cheaper deal.
Is he? He had a good season.
Was Nelson Aguilar the first receiver signed today? That whole market is just falling apart. What's going on?
I feel like he might be, right?
Well, I think there's a chance that
Will Wilson, our boy Will Fuller, still out there.
Well, I would say this on these guys. Kenny Galladay. So Allen Robinson tagged. Kenny Galladay is probably trying to break the bank, and I don't know that teams are necessarily. There's some people out there who think that he could be a sort of a one-trick pony type of guy.
That trick is pretty amazing, by the way.
I love Kenny Galladay, and I would sign him in a heartbeat. I'm just telling you that's what people think. And then with
people are saying
Will Fuller, he's suspended for one game next year and was constantly injured. And I love Will Fuller too, but he was constantly injured until until the year in which he got busted for PEDs. So that's like a couple of red flags balled into one big red flag. AJ Green, really old. You think he would fit with what the Patriots want to do. Maybe that could still work, but he's older. And then Corey Davis is like, does Corey Davis want to be paid like a true wide receiver 1, or is he willing to take wide receiver 2 money? So I think those are probably.
What about your boy Curtis Samuel? He's already got that Cam Newton connection.
He's signing in Jacksonville. I feel like Urban Meyer's guy.
So basically,
he would make a ton of sense for the Patriots. I mean, like he'd be a great fit for that offense.
The Patriots' plan today was to sign everyone so that there was no free agents left for anyone else.
That is correct. All right, let's hit some more questions. Sorry, I got lost in the chat. Do you Bryant Hinckley asked, do you guys think the Patriots are done, or are there some more signings to come? I would assume they try to get back David Andrews. More signings to come. I'm going to definitively say more signings to come. It did see, and Brian added that Jeff Howe said that the Patriots may add more than one wide receiver. I would think so. Like
they could sign 3 and not have enough.
In N'Keal Harry, it is still early in his career. These young wide receivers have been playing really well. You can't bury N'Keal Harry after 2 years, but Jacoby Myers can't be your one. Yeah. Now, if you come into the year and you have, like, let's say they figure out Kenny Galladay, right? And you have Kenny Galladay and Nelson Aguilar, Julian Edelman, Jonnu Smith, and Jacoby Myers, and then N'Keal Harry. Like that's cooking with some gas. Now that's a different ball game, and so we'll see how that plays out. It could also be a cheaper option at wide receiver, like an AJ Green type, or even Will Fuller if they want to add a little bit more speed. So certainly, still plenty going on there. Oh, Christian Blindstrup Anderson asks, "What's happening with the Giants?" P.S. Love the show here in Denmark. Hello,
Ooh.
Denmark. Love our international. We love the American, the continental listeners, but love the international listeners as well. Thank you.
And
for
we
listening.
love Denmark specifically.
Yeah, I've never been to Denmark, but I bet it's.
Is that where Amsterdam is?
It is, right?
No, it's next door. They're next door to each other.
But if you're in Denmark, you can get to Amsterdam quickly.
Very quickly. They're
nice save.
And in that case, I love Denmark. I don't know why. I'm sure I bet on some Denmark.
Who's your favorite Danish soccer player?
It seems rude.
Mine is Christian Eriksen. I just wanted to put that out there. Former Tottenham player. He now plays in Italy, I think. So the Eagles are. I'm not the Eagles. The Giants aren't doing anything. Dave Gettleman's probably scouting all the big fat guys so he can draft them all, the offensive and defensive linemen. They cut Golden Tate, and we talked previously about Kevin Zeitler, who they let go, and he has already signed with the Ravens. And right now they're just hoping Saquon gets healthy and Danny Dimes magically gets better.
It occurs to me that I don't know anything about Denmark, and I regret that.
I was going to say the only city I know is Copenhagen, and that's it. That's all I could tell you about Denmark.
Right. No, I mean, like I'm looking at these pictures of Denmark, and it looks like amazing.
Danish wedding. Remember those cookies? We talked about them previously.
Seems rude. I mean, like Copenhagen's a flavor of skull, or Copenhagen's a flavor, like a style of dip. Like that seems rude. This looks Denmark.
I didn't name the dip.
I love Danish weddings.
Wait, okay. Well, Denmark looks amazing. I didn't realize they had all these canals and rivers in there. I want to go visit Denmark.
All right, check it out.
All right, I'm gonna take my wife to Denmark in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Maybe not.
Do you like breach and just do it during the draft so you don't have to work?
That's right. So yeah, on the Giants, I mean, I think the biggest concern, they restructured Nate Solder. So I guess he's going to come back and play right tackle. Andrew Thomas at left tackle. The Zeitler thing is concerning. They do need another wide receiver. I feel like I've said this again. I've said this before in the podcast. And I really just think this is how it's going to play out is Dave Gettleman will overdraft a receiver in the first round. You know, they will. Did they already signed Leonard Williams, right?
Yeah. Are they?
I was like, they did sign Leonard Williams. They tagged Leonard Williams. They're going to pay Leonard Williams a bunch of money. They're going to overdraft a receiver in the first round. If like Waddle and Jamar Chase and Devontae Smith are gone, they'll take who's the guy from Florida?
Kyle Pitts is the wide receiver.
No,
Kadarius Toney.
They'll take like Kadarius Toney too early in the first round or something like that, or Rondell Moore or something. They'll take some wide receiver to help Danny Dimes out.
Yeah, but I mean, historically, Gettleman likes fat guys, so he could take.
I know, but he did this with Kelvin Benjamin. They were desperate for they were
a fat guy.
Fair, mean. I just think you're going to see them. Dave Gettleman is going to double down on the stuff he brought to New York to try and win football games and to salvage his job. That's just what I think this offseason will be. So we will see how that plays out. Noah Maltz asked, love the podcast. Are the Steelers going to sign anyone, Ryan?
Yeah, that's the question I saw earlier. I mentioned Cam Sutton's been signed and BJ Finney. They're not signing Juju. It probably now means they won't sign Mike Hilton, the slot receiver or the slot corner, because they're signing Cam Sutton to play that role. So that's where they're at. They re-signed Robert Spillane. I think he may have been a restricted free agent anyway, but he can play in the middle. Played for an injured Devin Bush. So yeah, I mean, they need a center. Linsley's gone. They couldn't afford him anyway. They got BJ Finney, but I would imagine he's not the long-term solution.
Forgive me if you already mentioned that. I was neck deep in Denmark pictures, thinking how wonderful it'd be to be walking around Denmark.
I'm thinking maybe we need to ask if we can do a live podcast from Denmark.
Let's do it.
August. I'm thinking August.
Diana Rossini tweets, the New York Giants have made a push to try to sign Leonard Floyd per source. Nothing done yet. So that would be a nice ad. Leonard Floyd would be good in that defense.
They need edge rusher, or they need defensive line help.
Yep.
And they need edge rush help, and they need linebacker help, and they need cornerback help.
And Kenny Galladay, I think, was also been pegged as someone the Giants are talking to. And the thing is, though, it's not like they can go out and make a bunch of splash moves. They're like the Steelers. They're kind of handcuffed by the salary cap right now. So if you want a guy and you go out and get a Leonard Floyd or a Kenny Galladay, that's it. You can't afford two of these high-priced guys. It's hard to make that math work, especially since Dave Gettleman uses like a 1951 calculator to figure out the salary cap there. Yeah, like the doot.
He's making fun of bloggers. Our buddy Bill Barnwell. By the way, so the money is in, or at least the initial reports are in, on Nelson Aguilar and Yannick Ngakoue, both 2-year deal, $26 million. Who would you rather pay 2 years? Who would you rather pay $26 million over 2 years for? Nelson Aguilar or Yannick Ngakoue?
I think Aguilar.
I think so too.
Wow.
Maybe.
Well, he had a much better year last year than Ngakoue did.
I would bet that both of those are 1-year deals.
Yeah, maybe. But I mean,
I would almost guarantee it.
Okay.
Just a thought.
But I would still rather pay Nelson, I think.
I know. I think so too. Let's see. Another question. Philip Chafflot asked, do you guys think that the Cardinals' inaction as of now is a sign of all things covered legend Patrick Peterson will be back?
I'm sorry. What's the question? Do I think what?
Do we think Pat P will be back?
Oh, so I don't know that, but I do know this. BMAC said on HQ, and he said it on the podcast, the All Things Considered podcast.
All things covered, but sure.
Covered, sorry. Listen to NPR, which Debo can confirm that Pat P is going to break the news of his future on the podcast, which I thought
that's interesting, Ryan. He actually said that on this podcast too.
And I would say if he's going to break the news of his future, that he is not returning to Arizona. That would be my guess. No,
BMAC said on here, he's like, they don't know. Like he doesn't.
Well, that's my guess. That's my guess. Based reading the tea leaves, I'm going to say he doesn't return to Arizona.
Breach throwing another colleague under the bus. What a surprise.
How's that throwing anybody under the bus? Have you ever been on a bus before? Some underneath buses can be nice.
No, under the bus means you're not in the luggage compartment. You're getting run over by the tires.
Oh, you didn't say that. You got to be more specific.
Under the bus, not inside the bus.
I mean, it's underneath the inside.
Dylan Boyd asks, curious what you guys think the Cowboys' best moves in free agency could be. I'm excited we got Dak back, but would love for us to go after a few defensive pieces as well.
So what have the Cowboys done so far? Dak, obviously. Cam Irvin signed elsewhere. Malik Collins signed elsewhere. So not a lot going on just yet. But yeah, I think defense is obviously a huge need. Defensive line, edge rusher, even linebacker, but cornerback for sure. I think in the millions of mock drafts, I've had them either take an edge rusher, occasionally offensive line help, or getting a cornerback. So would you rather pay Pat Pete a ton of money or draft a quarterback at a 10 or 11 when they pick? I mean, that's the question. Who are the other cornerbacks that are in free agency that they're going to get paid? Do we know?
The other cornerbacks?
Yeah. I was say quarterbacks. I was like, what is he talking
Well, we got my boy William Jackson from the Bengals.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Richard Sherman's out there.
I think Richard Sherman makes sense for the Jets. I've heard that bantied about because of being reunited with Saleh, bringing that winning attitude, so on and so forth.
Malcolm Butler.
Desmond Trufant. Casey Hayward's out there now.
Griffin of the Seahawks.
Michael Davis and Jason Verrett were both re-signed by their teams. Michael Davis to the Chargers and Verrett to the 49ers.
Yep.
Cameron Sutton, we mentioned, is back. So
there's some options out there. The names mentioned there. Casey Hayward's an interesting one. I don't know if I'd pay Malcolm Butler a lot of money, but I would kick the tires on him for the right price if he's willing to do that.
Yep.
So I think starting with the secondary is a good start. You mentioned earlier, we talked about all the edge rush possibilities, and you can never have enough edge rushers, and the Cowboys certainly need that.
I think that is a good call. The Cowboys currently with $20.75 million in salary cap space. So they can work, but you've got to be a little cautious. I mean, I think they're probably still celebrating that Dak contract. Angriest says, I have a question. The Bills don't sign anyone other than the people they re-signed. Milano, Williams, John Feliciano. Is it still a good offseason, or what would they need to do to make it so? I will quickly. It's a good offseason. Yeah, good offseason for the Bills. You bring back
Matt Milano was going to make a ton of money, and a lot of people want him in free agency. Darrell Williams is underrated as an offensive lineman. John Feliciano is too. And if you're building around Josh Allen, that's where you start. We just had the conversation about Patrick Mahomes. Absolutely. And yes, they lost John Brown, and maybe Gabriel Davis can step up or whatever. I don't know if that's a huge loss. He's been on several teams, and that saved them some money to allow them to do things they wanted to do.
But you're basically bringing back the same team last year that got smoked by the Chiefs twice. And so is that a playoff team?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So you're happy because you still have this playoff team. You should be happy with that in Buffalo. But if you want to get over the hump, I think you need to bring in some sort of pass rush help. You've got to get something that helps you beat the Chiefs, because you're nowhere near beating the Chiefs. And that's the team that is the class.
No, that's a good point. And they can do it at the draft and do it later free agency. But worth noting, that first loss to the Chiefs came after they played on a Tuesday and had all those that 3-game stretch where they winning football games because of the scheduling COVID related issues. So I'll give them a pass on that one. The playoff game, they got smoked.
By the way, quick Denmark follow up. Christian writes in the chat, how about the Danish guy on the Texans, Heijelt Froholt? Do you know if he is staying? P.S. If you guys want to visit Denmark, come to Copenhagen in the late spring. Deal.
Oh, that's soon.
I think the flowers are big there, right? Windmills. Is that right? Or am I looking at the wrong?
Breaches our European correspondent.
Yeah, that's right.
There's tulips in Amsterdam, which is not in Denmark.
Josina Anderson reporting that Leonard Floyd is done
to the Rams.
So that would be a dagger for the Giants as well right there. And just to circle back on the wide receiver conversation, Dirk Vandenberg says, in this tight cap year, should teams pass on wide receivers trying to break the bank and dip in the deep wide receiver rookie class a few times? Wilson, this class better than Breach and I, but I think there's something to that. Like, I think teams will look to address other areas of need before paying a ton of money for a wide receiver. Although, I think somebody like New York or the Giants or even the Jets or the Dolphins could get involved in Kenny Golladay if the price is right.
Oh, okay. I thought you said quarterback. So the wide receiver.
Wide receiver. Did I say quarterback? Sorry.
I wasn't sure. I want to double check. Yeah, that's right. This is a deep wide receiver class. Not as deep as last year's class.
Wow. $16 million a year for Leonard Floyd from the Rams.
Where did they get that money from?
I don't know.
We just established
Maybe they gave him a 12-year, $700 million deal that voids out over the final 8 years. He get the Taysom Hill special.
Maybe he takes Sean McVay bucks, in which case unlimited cap space. But
they're paying him in Cole's cash.
Wide receiver, you could definitely double down 2 and 3 guys. The Cardinals sort of did that a few years ago with Andy Isabella and Keyshawn Johnson, and the year before they got Christian Kirk, and they got Akeem Butler too that draft, and it didn't really work out. But that doesn't mean it's not from lack of trying. And they're guys that you like and they're available in late day 2, early day 3. Why not? I mean, why not take those guys? Because we've seen all these kids playing these spread offenses. They can contribute immediately as wide receivers were in years past, 10, 15 years ago. It took a while to get acclimated. That's not the issue anymore. So, yeah, instead of paying top dollar or even Nelson Aguilar money for that type of production, you can find Nelson Aguilar production in the draft. It's just a matter of getting lucky.
Indeed. All right. Anything else to add before we get out of here? Again, we'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Same deal. So if you want to jump in the chat, ask us anything. If you have questions after tomorrow's action or about today's stuff, if we missed it, I'm sorry. I think we tried to get to everything. Long podcast today. Hour and 15 minutes. You'd love to see it.
This is what happens when Debo is out freewheeling. Not.
I know. Debo's not saying time for break. He's streaming on the podcast.
There's no one to rein us in. We're just unhinged and unchained right now. It's not
much like Debo's audio. All right, let's get out of here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for chatting. See you guys tomorrow.